What's up, Giants fans, Hub watchers, YouTube subscribers, Twitter and Instagram followers? It's your boy Noname back at it again with another New York Giants video, kind of update-ish video. There's not really something to update on, but I definitely have a topic that I want to talk about concerning the Giants, more specifically Nate Solder, something that really popped into my head today, and we just have to get into a little bit with Nate Solder. And then also, of course, as I put out my video yesterday about the Giants and Jets not going to have any fans at their MetLife Stadium, or just in general, basically no events taking place at MetLife Stadium next year that has a capacity crowd over 500, which eliminates basically every event. In that video, I was like, I'd be surprised at this point if there is a preseason. I expect the NFL to scrap the preseason. Lo and behold, literally like 2 hours, legitimately 2 hours after I put out my video, Adam Schefter tweeted that the NFL offered the NFLPA today to play 0 preseason games this summer per source. And then after that, usually as with Shefty, and whenever Schefter reports something on Twitter, that's when the news starts rolling in, and various articles and other reporters confirmed what Adam Schefter was saying. Now, the NFLPA has not actually signed off on any deal like this yet, just like how they haven't signed off on the player opt-out deal, or what they're going to do in the case that players opt out in terms of contracts, in terms of health benefits and whatnot, all of that, which has been something that the NFL and NFLPA have been working on for a couple of weeks now. So I'm sure that those things will go hand in hand now, just putting more on their plates to work out between each other and whatnot before we actually get a signed done deal. But with all things considered, I fully expect there to not be a preseason. And my quick thoughts on that before I get into Solder is that it's the same thing I said yesterday, man. We're basically going to expect this. There's no point in having the preseason this year when it was already cut down to 2 games. And the only reason, and I do mean only reason, the preseason is even still a thing, it's not because of money. No, the NFL probably doesn't make that much money on the preseason games as you guys think. Now, I'm sure they make a good amount because people still buy tickets and go, and people still tune in on TV. But there's a reason a lot of people ignore it and whatnot. And it's not money is the reason as to why the preseason was kept wrong this long. It's because it makes the process easier to get the last guys on the roster to decide who the 3rd and 4th, maybe even 5th string guys at a certain position is, to work out special teams. It's a chance to see these guys perform under the best simulation of a regular NFL game and see how your nerves are, see how the reaction time is, and everything like that. Is the best simulation for that, and one of the best ways for coaches to see who they want on their team or not. That being said, just like I kind of said yesterday, my thoughts on the whole situation are the preseason hasn't existed for that long, and the NFL for years, decades, have figured out ways to, assemble the final parts of their team without the preseason. So it's not exactly something necessary, even though it does have, limited benefits. So preseason's gone. I'm completely fine with that. And now let's talk about Nate Solder, man. So Nate Solder, and this is weird, yo. I don't know why this popped into my head. I was watching Money in the Bank 2011. A lot of my subscribers know I'm a big pro wrestling fan, WWE, AEW, and all that. I was watching Money in the Bank 2011, Cena versus CM Punk, one of my favorite matches of all time. And I was like, I don't know why, but Solder popped into my mind, literally out of nowhere. I don't know if it was the contract thing, because for those of you that don't know, in that match, CM Punk, his contract ended an hour after the match, and he won the title. So he left the building with the title and whatnot. So for some reason, the contract linked into my head, and somehow I got Nate Solder's contract, and I'm like, oh yeah, something I've recently brought up on the channel is potentially cutting Solder halfway through or towards the end of the season, and then spreading his cap hit of his contract, his very lucrative contract, over 2 years and whatnot. And then I just kind of got into a whole Nate Solder type of thought process for some odd reason. By the way, let me know if you guys have been doing anything similar to me, just, going back and visiting old movies or pay-per-views or stuff like that you've been watching to keep yourselves occupied. Put it down in the comments below. But yeah, it got me thinking about Solder, and as much as we fans don't like him, and we have good reason to not like him, the guy signed a 4-year, $62 million deal. He's earning a base salary of essentially $10 million this year. He could earn up to 13.9, around, up to 13 to 14 million. I'll get the exact numbers in the video. And then if we cut him, his cap hit is even bigger than that. His cap hit is 19.5 million, and he's definitely not performing up to that contract. But no matter what we think, it's ultimately up to the coaches and the general manager. And of course, Joe Judge is going to be the biggest coach this season. He's actually somebody that believes in Solder. This was from an interview with Paul Schwartz of the New York Post, I'm going to give you the exact quote. Joe Judge said, "Yes, I believe in Nate Solder. I'm happy Nate Solder is here. I can't wait to work with him on the field. Nate's been a great leader for us. Nate's working his butt off. I'm very excited to have Nate on the team." And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this article is already a couple weeks old. This is not new news. Joe Judge definitely likes Nate Solder. You can argue, oh, there's a New England connection, but I honestly don't know if Judge really interacted with Solder that much. They were never really on the same side as the ball, in terms of special teams coordinator and then offensive line coach and whatnot. But maybe Nate Solder is truly just a hard worker. And this kind of goes for everything in life. You could be the hardest worker in the world, but suck at whatever you're working at. And so far for the past 2 years, that's kind of been the definition of Nate Solder. But I am also somebody that always complains about Pat Shurmur, the former head coach of the Giants. And that's another thing that Giants fans rightfully complain about, because Shurmur was the most inconsistent and incompetent head coach that we've had in a while. I don't even count Ben McAdoo as a head coach. I prefer to erase that part of Giants history, if I'm being completely honest with you. But Pat Shurmur was so inconsistent and so incompetent as a head coach that I can't exactly rule out the idea and the possibility that maybe Nate Solder struggled so much because Shurmur's scheme I said shucked, because Shurmur shucked. Anyway, I can't speak today, but because Shurmur's scheme absolutely sucked, and Shurmur as a coach was terrible. And so that overflows into what the offensive line coaches are doing. They're under Pat Shurmur, the head coach, and he was also calling plays on offense, which means he was calling the type of protections that Solder would have to work in and the type of run blocking that Solder would have to work for. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that the reason Solder sucked was because of the coaching. But then you come back, kind of playing devil's advocate once again. If you're being paid what you're being paid, $62 million, you should be able to overcome bad coaching. That's just my opinion. He's the highest paid tackle in the league, or one of the highest paid tackles in the league. You should be able to overcome that. And, it's a good thing that we have Jason Garrett as our offensive coordinator this year, who, is somebody that loves to focus on the offensive line and running plays and whatnot, which would only help out Nate Solder. And then Jason Garrett got his offensive line coach, Mark Colombo, one of the best in the NFL over the past 10 years. We talk about Garrett and Colombo basically constructed that Dallas offensive line. I'm not saying the Giants are going to have the Dallas offensive line, but that's a way, big leap. That's a very much improvement from last year's coaches, especially in the offensive line and offensive coordinator department type of stuff. And so Solder should have a lot more help from his coaches on that end. So, he should improve. And then we come back once again, devil's advocate. You talk about the fact that the dude is older. We still don't know fully just how much that surgery affected him that he had last year. There's a lot of factors that play into it. And then there's something that I caught on Twitter that I didn't even think about from Alex Wilson of Empire Sports Media. And shout out to him for tweeting this. I don't know how this popped into his head. But Nate Solder might not even play this season. He might opt out if given a choice, because one of the reasons he definitely suffered last year, along with the surgery, was the personal issue, something I continue to bring up. His son had cancer. His son was going through one of the worst things a parent could ever experience. You have no idea what that could do to his mental stability. Solder might opt out for fear of, getting the virus and then potentially putting his son at risk, a cancer patient. You never, ever want to do that, especially as a parent. And that never at all popped into my mind. The fact that Solder might just sit out the 2020 season if given the choice, not for himself, but for his family. And of course, I could do nothing but respect and applaud him for that if it does come down to that decision. You never want to put your loved ones at risk and whatnot. But that is something that did not pop into my mind. So we're out here talking about whether we should cut Solder or not. We're discussing how much of his difficulties are his fault, how much of it falls upon coaching, how much of it falls upon just, physical and mental trauma that he went through last year. And I don't think anybody really considered the point that the dude just might not even play this year because of what he went through in his personal life last year. And I can only just support him in that decision if that does end up happening. But I kind of want to get this message out to you guys so we're not blindsided if that is the case. Now, going back into the kind of the beginning of the video, the NFL still hasn't actually worked out a plan for player opt-outs, especially when it comes to contracts. I'm going to assume, and this is just an assumption because I think this is what the NBA is doing. I'm not sure. But the NBA players, I think, are still getting a percentage of their salary. So it would kind of suck to pay a guy that's not playing on the field, but it's still his job. And I guess it can be considered like sick leave or something if we're going to compare it to a regular human being's job in the U.S. and whatnot. But we'll see how that works out in terms of contract. Hopefully it doesn't affect the salary cap much. But something to keep in mind, Solder might not play the season. You know what I mean? But that's what I got for y'all today. Let me know what you all think. I'll be back, whether it's today or tomorrow, with the rookie training camp vid. I'll try to cover day 1 if there's any articles out on it, because unfortunately, since nobody could actually go and see the thing, there's not going to be anybody live streaming it or putting it up on YouTube and whatnot, so I'm going to be scavenging articles for you guys. Put your thoughts down below, and I'm out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I'll catch y'all in the next one.